1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
And with that sound, we lower the boat into the water.
Into the water. We need a splashing sound for the add-on to the other sound effect.
That is it. Detroit City of Champions. It is the podcast related to the trilogy of books written by
Charles Avison.
I'm Jamie Flanagan, and we're going to dive deep into the stories. And the story that we are on currently, part 2, leading into Gar Wood. So we're laying a little background, right? We're getting into it. We're laying a little background. We're figuring it out from a distance, and we want to know about Gar Wood.
Yeah. So it's just like we did with Joe Louis. We're gonna we're laying some groundwork for it, because it's just, this is the kind of story that really can be needs to be savored.
Get closer.
So,
yeah.
Well, it sounds a little loud, but we're good.
No, don't worry.
Cool. So anyways, so last week we talked about the episode title Chris Craft, because we started talking about Chris Smith and how Algonac really was
gonna make you jump.
Yes.
No, that's Chris Cross.
Yeah. You got
Chris
it.
Craft. I make you.
Your timing was perfect on that. I set you up for that, Jamie. I threw it at you. You hit it right out of the park. So
I did not know Chris Craft was a Michigan business,
and not only it's a Michigan business, it's an Algonac business, which is right. I mean, it's right here.
Yeah,
it's right up the road.
That's raft off. That's
So and like I was saying last week, I've done numerous art. There's an art show out there, and I used to do that all the time. And I'd be on this river, in the whole river. I've done many riverfront art shows, and you always see boats out there, but this is the only place where you just see wood speedboats all day. It's like you're in the 30s. I mean, there's literally Gar Wood or Chris Craft speedboats in the river, driving in the river on a nice sunny day, and then 50 yards from the art show is the museum, is the Gar Wood Museum, and with a statue of Gar Wood out front. And I'm selling books on the City of Champions. Like, that was my Graceland. Like, I love being out there.
So is it, and that's the thing we were talking about, Gar Wood and the boats, and how 8, 9, and 10 are the only ones that survived. His boats were called Miss America. And Miss America 8, 9, and 10.
Well, we'll get to that. I don't want to get too far down the road. Because we're about to talk about the Miss Detroit series first.
Okay.
And that's where it really starts. And then
we'll get into I felt like Tom Hanks last week.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about the boats. And we're talking about the Algonac area, and up in there, I forget what the little area was, and we were trying to figure out where these boats were.
Yeah. We're looking them up. Yeah.
And I'm like Google search. I'm searching, and I find that it's the 10 is at this marina up in that area, this little marina, and they own it. And so I'm thinking, hey, maybe it'd be cool to take a little trip. Maybe we could broadcast there. So I call them. And I'm like, yeah, it's an odd question. It took me forever to find this website and the name of the place. And I'm like, hey, odd question. I go, do you have Gar Wood's boat, the Miss America 10 there? And they're like, no, we don't. And she goes, we used to, though. And I'm like, okay, all right. I go, do you have any idea where it is? And she's like, I don't know. She goes, let me check with a couple people. And I'm all right. So she goes, I hear her walking away. She's walking back. Yeah. And then she goes, oh, yeah, they know where it is. It's at the Packard Museum, which is just like right here at Van Dyke and 23 or something, or 32, 23.
So that's worth a trip there, too. That'd be awesome to see.
I mean, it's like right in our backyard. But I felt like Tom Cruise is like, I found the Miss America 10.
Yeah.
But here's a trick. When you're trying to find the Miss America 10, and he names the boats are named with Roman numerals.
Yeah.
If you start Googling Miss America X, you get different stuff.
Oh, yeah, right. I bet you takes you all kinds of fun places, Jamie.
This is why the
research.
Some
real rabbit holes for that search term.
The research took me quite a while. Yeah, let me just say.
But you found some real fun sites.
Yeah. Clear history, clear browser, clear
cookies. Yeah.
So anyway, but I felt like Tom Hanks. I found the Miss America.
Well, it's fun.
10.
That's what's cool about the history thing. About history is that there's, it's it's finding stuff that nobody's seen. Why? I mean, that's one of the reasons why I got so addicted to the story, because the entire world was like an undiscovered territory. You know, there's been nobody that's looked into this story in any detail in 80 years.
Right.
And that's why I was like, every single thing I found was a feeling like that, where you're like, discovery.
Well, and then trying to look it up, right? And I'm looking for the Miss America 10, and all I find is this one, like, and it was like almost like an AOL hometown page. I mean, it was a really antiquated website with, you know, for this marina, saying the Miss America 10 was there, and then so they tell me it's at the Packard Museum, and so I go to the Packard Museum site, not a breath or a mention.
It's because this story's been forgotten.
That it's there, like it does, like it's an aside.
Ghost.
You know, so but I had called and I talked to this wonderful woman, Rebecca, at the Packard Museum. She runs all this stuff. I was going to go there today and kind of scout it, because that's what I want to do. We're going to do one of these episodes.
It'd be awesome.
From I think we're going to do it inside the boat.
That'd be awesome. If we could, dude, that'd be like, I'd love to get my picture, but that'd be my new like Facebook profile picture.
No, we'll get a picture with it. I don't know if they'll let us in it or not.
That'd be awesome.
We'll be right there. She said, "Oh yeah, there's
well, if you remember when we were filming at the Historical Museum for the Champions Day, they have a model of the Miss America 10 in the case.
Yes,
in that case.
It's
So when next time we film there, after we're done with this Gar Wood, you're going to look at that boat in a way that you have never looked at it before. Like right now, you know that something cool is coming. Yeah. But when we get to the point, when you see that boat in person, or you see that model, or you even see a picture of it, or anybody that's listening to this show, that's following along with us, by the time we get to the point where you understand what went into building that Miss America 10, there's a reason why this is my favorite story of the entire City of Champions season. Like, I mean, that's a big claim to make. We've already been through some incredible stories.
Amazing. Yeah.
And this is my favorite of all of them. And when you get to the point you're in the Miss America 10, it's like you're going to look at it with a completely different set of eyes. Yeah. It's going to be the most one of the most revered things you've ever seen in your life. When we get to the point, I mean, that's how I see it.
I'm excited.
It's like the coolest thing when you get to the point where you understand what it took to make that boat and get to that point. You're talking, I mean, it's incredible. And that's where we're going with this.
So and like I said, we got a green light to record next to it at the very least.
Yeah. I would love to get a picture. That'd be like that's like a dream to me to sit in that boat.
Oh yeah. I don't know if we'll get that. Well, maybe that would be so cool.
Well, maybe why not?
Sit there at the wheel. We'd have to get like commemorative teddy bears for it. Oh yeah, and then we would have to come back and strap the teddy bears to the arms of the microphones back in here in the studio.
I don't see why. It's a solid mahogany bowl. We're not going to damage it by sitting in it a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything.
I love it,
especially if we bring attention to it.
That's it. So, but yeah, we wanted to thank everybody who is following along. You said if you follow this story, so we want to thank everybody who is following the story, following the podcast. So collect, like, subscribe. And the most important thing, tell a friend or 2 or 10. So tell somebody about
every little comment, every like, every share, texting to somebody and tell them to, click on it, even if it's just a click on it for a second, and what it all helps, man. Sure, it really helps. We're, like I say, this is one of the most we're sitting here, we're trying to build a show on that, but what the substance of what we have, this is the heartbeat of Detroit sports. This is the birth of Detroit sports. This is one of the greatest stories, if not the greatest. I mean, this is among the top stories ever told in the history of Detroit. Not just the history of sports, but just the history of Detroit. I mean, we're building an entire show on a single year in Detroit sports history. And we're in episode 52, and we've got content to last forever, man.
Scratching the surface.
Yeah. So as I'm saying, like, this is Detroit history. This is sports history. This is a major thing. So,
thanks for joining us.
So we invite everybody to help us, bring this thing out a little bit.
All right. I got us off track. We were talking about Chris Craft and Algonac. And
we talked about the genesis, the very beginning, where he starts out and
we're talking about the single step boats.
Yeah, we talked about
last year.
We gave a little overview about the idea of how this is a different type of a boat. This isn't just a boat they put in the water, they throw an engine in like just like an outboard motorboat type thing. These are boats that they're building specifically for speed.
Right.
These are a different type of people. These are, anybody can just put an engine in a boat. These people are trying to go for speed. And so,
he came up with the interesting concept there with the single step.
Exactly. So the single step, the concept being that the boat would lift up out of the water, and only the back end of the boat would touch the water,
Right.
and there was less friction with the water, and therefore you're just, the engine is just driving you, you're just skimming the surface as much as possible. It's all about the friction. The aerodynamics, of course, would come into play too, but this is the very beginning of it. And Chris Smith, he built the first gasoline powered engine, boat in the Great Lakes. And it was in his first, we talked about how it went 9 miles an hour. His first, it was
crazy, Chris.
It's a 9 mile an hour boat. And so we talked about how there was a traveling businessman that came through Algonac and saw like the entire city. This is early 1900s.
Yeah.
And he goes there duck hunting, which is a big duck hunting area out in Algonac. And he goes out there and everybody's driving around on these boats. And he's like, what the heck is going on?
How do I get me one of them?
Like, he's like never seen one, or maybe seen one or two in his life. And then he goes out here and it's like everybody's just cruising around on him. And he's like,
with it,
what's going on here? And so that's when he meets the guy who's making him, which is Chris Smith. And then he brings Chris Smith's name to attention to a guy in New York who's trying to win these boating trophies, his Gold Cup, the Harmsworth. He's trying to be competitive. And so then this guy's like, well, can he build fast boats? And he's like, yeah, I think so. This guy's, knows what he's doing. He's building boats all over the place. And so that's when he gets commissioned to start, to build. And the first boats he builds and he builds it for, revisit the guy's name. So J. Stewart Blackton, Commodore of the Atlantic Yacht Club. And so he commissioned Chris Smith to build him 3 boats. The first was the Baby Reliance, and it was Blackton bought that for $8,500. He bought that for his own personal use. And then the Baby Reliance 2 and 3, as we're going to see, we'll get into that. But those were his like race boats.
Yeah.
So today, like, I was thinking about how I wanted to introduce the Harmsworth Trophy. Like, I wasn't sure. Like in the NHL, it was a little bit different because we could introduce the Stanley Cup right from the beginning, because that was like the thing that really drove the competition. And likewise, the Harmsworth Trophy is the same here. But I wanted to, so we're going to slot it in real quick right here. So we're going to interrupt the Chris Smith story to introduce the Harmsworth, and then we're going to drift back into the Christmas story to, as it sort of relates to this. So because the Harmsworth Trophy, the Harmsworth Cup is absolutely the heartbeat of what this story is all about. Okay. In conveying like how big this, trophy is,
right.
It's similar. I always equate the Harmsworth Trophy to the Stanley Cup.
Okay.
All right. Because, and I have a picture. I have a picture I put, the slide I gave you that shows you the Harmsworth.
It's an interesting trophy. It's flat. You
Yes.
don't expect a trophy to be like a platter, it's not even like a platter. It's like I don't know.
It's got like, I'm not even sure what it's made of. And the thing is, information on the Harmsworth is so incredibly rare.
Okay.
It's tough to find. It's not something that that anybody ever talks about. If you ever hear anything about speedboat racing, it's always the Gold Cup. And the Gold Cup is emblematic of of speed on water, like the American Cup in essence. Like it's America's trophy for best speed on water.
Yeah.
But the Harmsworth Trophy was an international trophy, and kind of like the Stanley Cup, it was created by a man named Alfred Harmsworth, who's whose handle, he's an English guy. He was a Canadian who moved to England, and his it's actually, I take that back. I'm thinking of a different driver. Alfred Harmsworth is an Englishman, and he's born and raised there. He is the first Viscount Northcliffe, and he's the owner of the Daily Mail and Daily Mirror newspapers in England.
Okay,
which are 2 major newspapers, and he's the owner of both of those. And so he's the one that issues this, and he issues this out in 1903. That's the first race for the Harmsworth Trophy is 1903. And just like I equated the Stanley Cup, because the purpose of this Harmsworth Trophy was to encourage the development of speed on water. In essence, it was like, where the Stanley Cup was like, it was open trophy. Anybody could compete for the Stanley Cup. And that's what encouraged better and better teams to come around, was like better, cities wanted to bring home the Stanley Cup. And so there was more money being put into these teams. And that's what, led to the creation of the professional teams. The rise of professionalism around hockey was the single-minded pursuit of the cup. And such was the case with this, because in essence, by an Englishman, by the super rich and at the time very powerful, incredibly well-known man, Alfred Harmsworth, issuing this challenge cup and the fact that it was an Englishman, which were like traditional, like masters of the sea.
Yeah.
It was like an open challenge to the world saying, we've got this championship trophy for speed on water, and if you want it, come take it.
Okay.
And so the original idea was it was an international championship, as I mentioned, international championship. But even more specific, it wasn't just like open to anybody for whatever reason. It was believed to be a contest between nations, which meant that boats challenging for the Harmsworth could only be built with materials from that country.
Oh,
so you couldn't import stuff from around the world. It had to be materials from your country.
you can't put that Mitsubishi engine in your American boat.
Yes, and as we will see going forward, this is going to be a very important thing to remember, because this is going to lead to all kinds of challenges for these people,
right?
Because for the engines, for the wood, for all the stuff they're going to need to build these boats,
right,
they're restricted by the fact they have to only find materials from their country in order to build it. And so that's a major component of the thing. And so the races also, these races, these are not like, hey, we're going to race you to the end of the lake, and that's all there is to it. These are like almost marathon races.
Right.
I mean, they're racing like 30 or 40 miles for this race. I mean, it's usually involves something like 3 laps. I think the rules I don't want to make a statement, say they all were the same, laps around a certain thing, but they're usually like a 3-lap race, and it's a single race. It's 3 laps, and you're running like 30-mile race. So your boats, depending on especially where it is in the early days, we're going to see, early days, they're racing in the Atlantic Ocean. You know what I mean? Like you got to build a boat that is not just fast. It cannot just be fast. It has to be able to take a beating.
Yeah.
And it has to be engineering. The engineering for it has to be incredibly sound.
Right.
Because if it hits anything, if it breaks down or has some kind of a fuse blow, like a spark plug blow or whatever like this, and you're out in the middle of this track, you're done. And they're spending insane amounts of money, as we're gonna we're not gonna see that necessarily today, but as we get it going here, you're gonna see the vast sums of money. I mean, entire countries are getting involved, like their entire the British Admiralty is going to be spending a portion of their budget trying to develop speed on water for the prestige of Britain. Like it's just going to be the biggest thing. And so like everything is going to be riding on these things. And so that's a key component is that the boat has to be like just an absolute beast. It has to be fast, durable, maneuverable, everything, and that's what's so key about this race is that it's when the boats that win these races, they're the best boats, right? It might not necessarily have the fastest every single time, but they're going to be the best. And so that's what this, trophy was all about. And so, just a kind of a brief rundown history of it. So 1903, the first race, just reading about the first race, I do a little, reading before the show started tonight. And the first race was an absolute, I hate to use the word for body waste removal, but it was an absolute, it was a rough patch, like for all the boats involved in 1903. They could barely, half of them were barely running, and they were just kind of beat up and chunky. Like it was not good, right? It was basically whoever boat could finish the race was winning. And so the very first race was won by a woman named Dorothy Levitt.
Oh, Dorothy.
Yes. And so I have a picture of her we brought to the show, which is cool. Like she's posed in this photo, like this, romantic, this is an incredible photo.
Fur coat,
with her, look at this picture. If you can't see it, if you're listening to it, she's posed with a steering wheel,
right? And
she's got her scarf is blowing in the wind, like she's in mid race. Like this is like a portrait. There's no way they took this in a boat. No. Like this is like a posed stage photo, and this is how she wanted to be remembered. This was a big shot she took. This is a stage photo. So they probably had like a fan blowing or something to make it look like she's in mid. It's a great photo. But so it was a woman who won the first Harmsworth.
Get out.
Yeah. So the first race was race. And this is another component I didn't mention was, so whenever whoever won the trophy, the following year, the race would be held on their water, on their, so the first race
they would pick the venue,
but it would be their country because that's where, that's just what you were going to do. So the boat was called the Napier 1, and it was driven by Dorothy Levitt. And the race was in Cork, Ireland, off the coast of Cork, Ireland.
So an Irish lady.
No, no, that's just where the race was.
Oh,
She was English. She was
English.
British. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
and so so that boat went
1903.
Yeah, so that boat, the speed of that boat was 19.53 miles per hour. That was the average speed. 19 miles an hour, right?
She was smoking it.
Yeah, so we went from in
You can
1890
walk that fast.
So I like to we're going to track the progress
Or
of these
maybe
boats' speed evolving. So we talked about 1893, which was the 9 mile an hour boat with Chris Smith, and so here in 1903, 10 years later, the boat that's winning this race is going 19.53 miles an hour.
We're up
right?
from 9 miles an hour.
We're up.
Yeah, we're up.
Yeah. So anyways, so just to kind of breeze through the next few years here, just to kind of rip through it. So France won the next race. Again, it was the race was held in England. So 1904, France won. The boat went 26.6 miles an hour.
All right.
1905, the UK won, going 26 miles an hour. 1906, the UK won again, going 15 miles an hour. I guess that was a rough patch.
It was a rough
just
year.
A pure survival year. That year, 15.
Yeah.
I'm looking winning going 15. So 1907, the USA wins its first, right? And with the boat's called the Dixie One. Yeah, so the Dixie One goes 31.7 miles an hour. 1908, the Dixie Two wins 31.35 miles an hour.
It's one better.
Yes. It's 1-7. So 1909, there's no race, but 1910, the Dixie 3 wins, going 36 mile an hour.
All right.
In 1911, the Dixie 4.
There's a pattern here.
Yeah. So there's 4 straight evolutions of the Dixie.
The Dixie,
which is wins go 40 miles an hour is the final Dixie 4 is
all
what
right.
wins. Okay. So anyways, this is the point that we left off last week.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the point. This is the exact moment that Commodore, that New York Commodore is having Chris Smith build these Baby Reliances.
Okay.
Because he wants to enter this because the race is in New York.
The race has been going on.
The race has been going on. Now the next race is in New York, but it's a different yacht club that's hosting it. And so this Commodore wants to bring the races to his yacht club.
Sure. So I need a fast boat. I need to win it. I got to bring this home.
He hears about Chris Smith and Algonac making these boats.
I can sell a crap ton of dacqueries.
Yeah. So exactly. He wants to bring the race there. It's a prestige thing, So anyways, and so it's at this exact moment, which is 1912, that Chris Smith is entering the scene here, and he's making boats for this Commodore. So he makes the Baby Reliance 1, which is the personal boat for the Commodore, and then Baby Reliance 2 and 3. Those are his racing boats. So as soon as he releases, 1912, he releases the Baby Reliance 2 and 3, and the boat set the boat set a new record for speed on water, but this is during the 4th of July festival in Iowa, right? And so the boat set a speed on water record 53.7 miles an hour.
Game on.
Because the Dixie 4 only went 40 miles an hour.
Right.
So he's going 53.7.
Yep. But you got to do it on the course.
This is a thing in Iowa. This is a boat race in Iowa. It's not the Gold Cup, and it's certainly not the Harmsworth, right?
Okay.
But it gives them hope that this is something that could compete. So in the ensuing Harmsworth of 1912, the Baby Reliance 2 in the first heat, meaning the first lap around the track, the Baby Reliance initially sets a record at 42.69 or 42.679 miles per hour.
Okay.
But the boats are too light for this heavy waves of the Atlantic.
So
the boats are basically knocked around, and the eventual winner is not either of these Baby Reliances or Chris Smith, but a boat by a man named Sir Mackie Edgar, who's an Englishman, and he's driving the Maple Leaf 4.
Okay.
And he wins this race with an average speed of 43.18 miles an hour.
Oh, there you go.
So anyways, so he actually has a boat. I have a graphic of that too. We got this up in the screen.
Yeah, that's a good looking ride there.
It's a good looking boat. Yeah.
That's majestic.
And you can see the and it's skimming, it's planing in that picture. In the top photo, you get the front, you can see how it's planing. The front end of the boat is out of the water. And then the top of the boat, you can see they've removed the cover so you can see the engine.
It's just all engine. It's just the engine is like 8 feet long.
Yeah. So that was 1913. So the Maple Leaf 4. I'm sorry, that was 1912. That was 1912, and the Maple Leaf 4 wins that race. And so 1913, so Edgar repeats. The Maple Leaf 4 wins again.
Ooh.
This time averaging 57 miles an hour, and they defend the title because this time the race is moved to England, and he wins the title in England off the Isle of Wight. So 1913, this is he wins this race. So 1914, World War I begins.
Okay, yeah.
And the races are done. There's no speedboat races, people dumping money into motorsports.
Yeah.
When World War, especially since this is now a British, the British have the right to host the race. And if the British aren't involved because they're fighting a war, it doesn't happen. So it's at this point where Chris, without these races, Chris Smith, his financial the even bigger thing is that is Chris Smith's backers, these New York backers, were all pretty heavily tied into like trade with Britain, trade with Germany, and this and that. And so with the war on, these guys were all tightening their belts, and they're like, we don't have the extra money to build boats and all this other stuff.
Right.
And so Chris Smith is basically out of a job. I mean, he's out. Without these guys wanting to build boats, he doesn't. That's what his job has been. So 1914 to 1915, it sort of brings up the title of the episode that we have here, which I say, where it's Chris Smith and his last 7 cents. That's the title of the episode of today's episode. And so it's at this moment that Chris Smith, without a job, this is the winter and night. This is the in between 1914 and 1915. This is a quote. This is out of the book Speedboat Kings, and it does a great job, sort of talking about the situation Chris Smith is in at this moment, and also kind of foreshadows sort of the next little bit of the story here. So again, this comes from Speedboat Kings, which is a book we talked about last week, which is just to refresh everybody's memory about my absolute find.
Yeah,
I got the book for like $100. Which was expensive 10 years ago for a book, $100.
Yeah,
and it's so rare that now we were looking at it before last episode, and it's going for $800 or $750 a book now. I'm like, holy, I don't even know what to do with it. Like anyways. So this comes out of that. If you want the cliff notes from that book, you could just buy mine for $40. You get a lot of the cliff notes because I'm just reading it right out of mine.
Yeah.
So this comes again from that Speedboat King. And again, J. Lee Barrett was there. This is a guy who was absolutely knew these people of what he's writing about. So this guy was somebody that was there. So according to J. Lee Barrett, during the winter of 1914-15, Chris Smith went to New York to see Blackton in a final effort to sell him a boat. After 4 or 5 days, their things looked pretty bad for Smith. One night, a poker game had stripped him down to his last 7 cents. He received a telegram from Detroit. He tipped the messenger boy the 7 cents and went to bed. That night, he had a dream. He saw a beautiful speedboat being displayed on Cadillac Square, Detroit, beside the Pontchartrain Hotel, and hundreds of beautiful flower girls were throwing basketfuls of dollar bills into the boat. The money had been given by the people of Detroit. In his dream, Smith even began to lay out plans for the boat. That's the idea, Smith told himself the next morning. Build a speedboat for Detroit and raise the money by popular subscription. He borrowed $100 from friends in New York and rushed back to Detroit. At the Pontchartrain Hotel, he met Sherman Woolley and William J. Chittenden. He told them of his dream. The men were interested. That dream can be carried out, Chris, Woolley said. It's the easiest thing in the world. They called a meeting of civic leaders for March 30th, 1915, and organized the Miss Detroit Powerboat Association. Later, meaning J. Lee Barrett himself, was appointed secretary. We talked about speedboats and racing that day, about rules and qualifications, about displacement and restrictions. No one in Detroit knew much about these things. Detroit had never seen a speedboat race of any importance. All of the races for the Gold Cup trophy had been held in the East, on the St. Lawrence River, Lake George, the Hudson River, Chippewa Bay, but never in the Middle West. In the Harmsworth race had never been held west of Long Island. The idea of shipping English boats to the interior of the American continent was unthinkable in 1915. So you see the situation here. Yeah. He's like looking for a job, and he's like, "Well, what about Detroit?
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring, so the idea is that he has this dream, right? That that these girls are throwing money, little dollar bills into build this boat, and so these guys
are like some original crowdsourcing.
100%. And these guys are like, that's
nothing's
the easiest.
New. Nothing's new.
Yeah, they're like, this is the easiest thing in the world. We're gonna build this boat, right? So as you can tell, as it's sort of foreshadowing, that's what they make this happen.
Yeah.
so in 1915, Chris Smith builds the Miss Detroit 1, right? He builds this with a 250 horsepower Sterling engine. In 1915, the boat wins the 1915 Gold Cup in Manhasset Bay, New York. I don't have the speed for that particular race, but so he wins that race. So the and the boat is driven by two guys named Jack Beebe and John Freckles Milst. So no, I'm sorry, John Freckles Milot. So Milot. So and then so his first, once again, he's winning races, he's setting records, he's going, he's putting up speed records. Unfortunately, they've, as great as it sounds to have dollars and pennies coming from heaven and people, little, flower girls throwing dollar bills into the boats, it didn't necessarily happen like that, because by the end of this entire escapade, the Miss Detroit Powerboat Association owed Chris Smith $1,800.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
A lot of money in 1915. Yeah. And so now the Miss Detroit 1 wins the Gold Cup. The race, the boat race is coming to Detroit the following year for 1916. And then but there's no money. They owe him $1,800 for this, right? And so now basically he's not really in much better situation as he was after this, where he was down to his last 7 cents. And so so Chris Smith, and for the 1916 race in Detroit, Gold Cup race in Detroit, Chris Smith is forced to accept a commission from a group of Minnesota sportsmen to build them a boat to race in into this Detroit race.
Dang it.
So he builds the Miss Minneapolis for them. And the Miss Minneapolis beats the Miss Detroit on Detroit's home river for the 1916 Gold Cup. So Chris, Chris
is like, hey, if you had paid me.
Yeah, well, yeah. So he's it's a little disappointing that it's horrible, so the Miss Minneapolis beats the Miss Detroit on the inaugural Detroit River Gold Cup.
Dang it.
And so after the 1916 Gold Cup, the Miss Detroit, because he wasn't there to build it and to make the tune-ups of it for the 1915 race,
right?
I'm sorry, the 1916 race, because he wasn't there to upgrade it and all that, and they had no money obviously to put into it.
Yeah.
So at the end of this race, the 1916 Gold Cup race, the Miss Detroit is just a beater.
Yeah,
it's just beaten to heck, and it's just done. The boat's just finished. And so that sort of leads me to my final little quote, because this quote's going to sort of take us toward, leave us off towards the towards the next episode. But it's just amazing. It's an incredible setup quote. Again, this is from Speedboat Kings. This basically most of the quotes I have in this section are.
Yeah.
So again, this is J. Lee Barrett talking about this, and he was the secretary of as we saw in the last quote, he's the secretary of the Miss Detroit Powerboat Association, right? So he's in very well placed to know all of this stuff, right?
Right.
So our Miss Detroit was a broken, battered hulk after the race, fit only for junk. Some of us were actually going to junk the boat. Metzger, Dodge, Barlam, and Shantz ordered me to sell the boat to the highest bidder. Maybe we'll get something out of it, they said. Liquidate our obligations and wind up the affairs of the Miss Detroit Powerboat Association. So one day I made a plea at the noonday meeting of the Detroit Exchange Club for some loyal Detroiter to buy the boat. It so happened that one man in all the world who was interested in a used speedboat was in that room when I spoke. He stood up, a slim, dark-haired, modest fellow about 35 years old. I had never seen the man before. How much do you want for that boat? He called out from the back of the dining room. Silence swept the room. The man didn't look to me like he could buy a $1,800 boat. I leaned over to Judge Sherman Callender sitting at my side, said, "Shall I tell him the price?" "Sure," the judge says. "Take a chance." I straightened up and told the stranger the price. "I've got $1,000, he said. "I'll give you 6 months' note for the balance." I whispered to the judge, Is his note good for $800? The judge replied, "His word is good for $1 million." The boat was sold to Gar Wood. Gar Wood buys the Miss Detroit.
There you go. And the foundation is set.
So that's where you can't. I don't want to take it any further.
Sure.
He's like, he's like, is he good for $800? And wait till we hear about Gar Wood, the beginnings of Gar Wood and how he makes his money and stuff. He's like, his word's good for $1 million. So Gar Wood buys the Miss Detroit
1,000
one
on me.
Yeah. So the Miss Detroit one, this is so now it's like, so that's where we're going with this.
I'm digging it. That you get the picture of the Miss Detroit up there.
So you've got this genius boat builder.
Smokestacks.
So the long and short of the last really two episodes here is you got this genius boat builder raised. He's in our own backyard in Algonac.
Yeah,
and so he's building boats, but he's got no money. He's got no stability. Yeah. And he's looking, he's a genius. I mean, this guy's a genius. Every boat he builds is winning gold cups. And the guy starts off his life, 1893, building the first, gasoline powered boat in the Great Lakes. I mean, this guy, Chris Smith, is awesome. He's awesome by himself.
Oh, yeah. But
then all of a sudden, the guy in the back of the room stands up and is like, I'll tell you, how much you want for that boat? It's a beater, like $1,800, They want to settle the debt with Chris Smith.
Sure.
And he's like, yeah, I'll give you 1,000 now and 800. I'll give you a note for the balance, the other 800. They're like, are you sure we could trust that? No, they're like, yeah, we could trust it. It's Gar.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that it's just such a great, but that little quote right there, that's how J. Lee Barrett's writing is in his book.
Right.
And it's just, he just sets you up, man. It just sets you up for the next hit, next, that he talks about something, then bam, hits you with something else.
And he was there. He was boots on the ground. He was,
he says right here,
he was in the room.
He says right in the room, I leaned over to Judge Sherman Callender sitting at my side and said, shall I tell him the price?
Yeah.
He was the one that even said $1,000 to Gar Wood, or 1,800. He's the one that told Gar Wood the price in that situation. Sure, the judge said take a chance. I straightened up and told the stranger the price.
Yeah,
he's the one that told. He's not just there. He's the one telling Gar Wood the price. Right.
That's awesome.
They talk about firsthand primary source.
Yeah,
he's there in the room on the dais.
Yeah.
And that's how I think the whole story with Gar Wood. That's how it's going to be a repeating occurrence. J. Lee Barrett, there's a part at some point we're going to coming up where it's this super critical moment, we'll get to that quote, but J. Lee Barrett walks into Gar Wood's mansion.
Okay.
And they're all on the floor, drawn on the floor, they're trying to figure out a way to get around some particular engineering situation. And he's like, I walked in and it was there's, they're all on the floor drawing stuff. He's telling you what he was there, and some of the most in the moments that he describes are incredible, incredibly important. And, sort of pivot points for the entire story. This is a pivot for the entire story. The Mr. Detroit Powerboat Association's done. Chris Smith's building boats for Minnesota sportsmen.
Yeah.
Detroit just lost its own Gold Cup race. It's and then here's a pivot. This Gar Wood comes on the scene, and he's there to be the one that tells the price for the boat. He's the one that's the one that's doing he's the main guy.
But I find really interesting. 1903. There was a woman that won.
Yeah, that's what I'm just
as
saying.
you would, so Dorothy, that's a part of today's episode that really it's just wow, okay, Well,
we've been over a lot of this too. We've been over a lot of this before with what's when we're talking about boxing and all this stuff too. Is that there a lot of times there's a lot of sort of stereotype images that I think that we as modern people put on the past unfairly.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to feminism, racism, these kind of things. Yeah. A lot of times we impress upon these things what we sort of believe to be true. Yeah. That there's certainly truth to these things, but there's also there was a lot of again, to use the same word, pivots in things that happen that led the world away from some of these darker paths that it was on or had been doing. Mm. And this is an example. 1903. You don't think of 1903, a woman featuring in this speedball race and winning the first Harmsworth, which we're going to see. The Harmsworth Trophy was going to become one of the most important and most coveted trophies on earth. Right. It's a woman winning it, and she's cool as hell. Look at the picture of her.
It is.
You really couldn't have. This is one of the most epic. Anybody that's not I wish we could kind of post that as our thumbnail picture.
I can
for the show. You can.
Yeah, I can.
Because so if you can't see it, this woman I just got this off of. I think I got it off her Wikipedia page.
Okay.
Because I just looked up and if you look at her story, this woman is just legendary, man. This is not the only thing she did.
Okay.
But this picture of her is one of the most epic photos you're ever gonna see. This girl is 1903. She's just awesome. So, but that's what I'm saying is there's the world it's illuminating to see people in the early 1900s not living up to the stereotypes that a lot of times modern world puts on them.
Every time I turn around this story and the parts to it, it just get better and better.
I know.
It's just better.
The Gar Wood,
better and better and better.
we're just getting started on Gar Wood. The Gar Wood thing. We just wait until you see where we're going with this. This is just the primer.
Yep.
You know, like, I mean, I can't even imagine just if we could see this. I was talking to a lady the other day in the store about this thing. I'm like, yeah, it's a 9-episode miniseries, but it can be expanded to be like, I was thinking to myself, like, this thing could be expanded to be like 27 episodes, especially like I didn't even write a Gar Wood segment for the screenplay, but like, because I was really just trying to lock in the copyright for the main stories.
Yeah.
And I gave myself a full year to write. And I was like, kind of like, I got to the end. It was like, it turned to become like 15, 16 months. I'm like, all right, I had other projects I had to do. I just wanted to lock it in.
Yeah.
So I didn't do a Gar Wood story, but Gar Wood, I mean, you're going to see like this story, it richly deserves to be part of the, for a screenplay movie type thing.
This needs to be like a Detroit documentary.
100%. 100%
fiction.
Well, like they say, wait till we get to the point where there is 1 million people on the Detroit riverfront on either side, Canada and the US. And like these, I mean, the entire governments of nations are sending boats to Detroit to try to take the Harmsman from Gar Wood.
I don't think so.
Wait till you get to it. And then in repeated attempts by entire governments, him and Chris Smith and these engineers were beating them every time. Like it's just going to be. But the things but what's so interesting is it's not even necessarily the races. It's the stuff that all went down, all the stuff they had to do just to get the boat ready for a race. The engineering, it's really a story of the engineering, which I've never, I've never been like a motorboats or, like a motorsports fan. I mean, I guess I watch a little bit, but I don't like watch like a whole NASCAR race or anything. But this, like, when you see this, I mean, this is like the genesis of motorsports in America, so like whether it's NASCAR you like or anything, or even if you don't even like say, even if you never cared for motorsports, just the story alone is just enough to carries itself.
And we'll have more of it next time. So again, click the like button and subscribe and collect and forward, and then tell some of your friends. Tell your friends about it. We appreciate that. That'd be a colossal help.
And like
to
it,
us.
you hit the little thumbs up button.
Sure, the DetroitCityOfChampions.com. It's all kinds of Charles stuff on there. There's T-shirts and the books themselves, links to the podcast and all.
If you're out in the Detroit area,
come. Stuff.
If you're out in the Detroit area, come. I spent a lot of time in the 12 Oaks Mall and Partridge Creek Mall. There's two. 12 Oaks Mall is in Novi, and Partridge Creek Mall is in Clinton Township. And I'm at the stores called Inspire Marketplace, which is I have my whole book display there, shirt display, and I talk about City of Champions stuff like all day to people, and baseball, and like I try to get work done, but a lot of times I'm just like talking about this and like talking about these things. So if you're in the area, stop by, say hi.
All right, so there we go. Again, thanks so much, and we'll do it again next week with more of this story. It's Detroit City of Champions.